Jurassic Park is a movie that needs no introduction, but you're going to get one anyway because that's how the format of this video series works. Based on the 1990 novel by Michael Crichton, the film about a dinosaur theme park was almost guaranteed to be a smash hit. The book was already a bestseller, Steven Spielberg was attached to direct, and Jeff Goldblum was willing to unbutton his shirt. It was primed for success.
And success is exactly what it found. If you were alive in 1993, you saw Jurassic Park in theaters at least twice. And if you died in 1992, you were very, very jealous. The movie was so successful, it made all of the money in the world. And then the world printed more money for the sole purpose of giving it to Jurassic Park as well. The film had everything. Dinosaurs, dinosaur spookums, dinosaur stinkums. What else could anyone want?
Well, we all know the answer to that, don't we? Video games, and oh boy, did we get them, both for the first film and for its several sequels, which aren't nearly as good. They have their fans, but then again so did serial killers. Regardless of the quality of the source material, we will indeed be ranking every Jurassic Park game from worst to best.
The rules are simple. Exceptions include pinball games, mobile games, LCD games, and so on, but for the first time ever, we will be including official browser games. We're doing this for a couple of reasons. First, because there are only 2 of them, and second, so that you can see how utterly worthless they are, and will better understand why we may never include browser games in a ranked list ever again.
Also, a bit of video game trivia, Crichton created his own game called Amazon in 1984. It's not on this list because it has nothing to do with Jurassic Park, but look for it on our list of every game developed by authors while they were bored, ranked from worst to best, which I'm sure you can expect any day now. Let's rank 'em. I'm Ben.
And I'm Peter from Triple Jump, and welcome to every Jurassic Park video game ranked from worst to best.
Number 38. Scan Command Jurassic Park, 2001. PC. Do you know what I love most about self-checkout kiosks? Trying to find the barcodes on each item and then scanning them into a temperamental reader that can't tell the difference between an avocado and a bag of gym socks. Pure bliss, that. If you love that experience as much as I do, and you also love dinosaurs hitting each other, then you'll want to get your hands on Scan Command Jurassic Park. The game takes all the fun of scanning household objects and combines it with the thrill of dinosaurs who probably won't react to anything you do. Each time you scan a barcode, you are ostensibly powering up your dinosaur, making it more equipped to win fights with other dinosaurs who presumably don't have cupboards as well stocked as yours. Critics were not impressed, with their complaints having more variety than the actual game did. They reported issues with the scanner not registering barcodes, bleating loudly each time it failed. They raised concerns of needing so many barcodes that you'd spend more time scouring your house for them than actually playing the game, and, most entertainingly, one complained of the scanner being so unresponsive that he could never be sure if the game had locked up. Number 37. The Lost World Jurassic Park, 1997. Gamecom. Say what you will about the Gamecom. No, really say it, so I can nod along, secure in the knowledge that I am not alone in my suffering. The Lost World Jurassic Park allows you to choose between 2 of the characters from the film, Sarah Harding and Roland Tempo. You may remember them as being the character Julianne Moore played and the character Julianne Moore did not play. You'd think the choice would affect gameplay, what with them having conflicting interests, but it just changes which mess of pixels will blur across your screen as you wonder why you aren't doing literally anything else with your time. The action unfolds across driving and platforming stages. I'm telling you this because you'd likely never know it yourself, being as the Gamecom has roughly the graphical capabilities of a malfunctioning menu board at McDonald's. The game also came out for the R-Zone, I think. I'm not sure if it was meant to be the same game as this one, or if it was specifically designed for children whose parents hated them. The commercial made it look as though your eye is in constant danger from being plucked out by a T-Rex, but the only gameplay footage we could find suggests that the game is about one rectangle trying to squeeze past another in a narrow corridor without seeming rude. Number 36. Jurassic Park Paint and Activity Center, 1994. PC. Some sources claimed that Jurassic Park Paint and Activity Center was intended to appeal to fans of Mario Paint and Kid Pix. I think it's more accurate to say that it was intended to suck as much money with as little effort out of fans' wallets as possible. The game barely exists, and yes, I'm taking into account that this was designed for very young children. Actually, why was this designed for very young children? The movie was PG-13. Certainly nobody over the age of 12 would want to play this. Nobody over the age of 0 would want to play this. The highlight is a set of 16 stories which feature voice acting in the same way that when you sit near a strange man muttering to himself on the bus, your ride to work features voice acting. These are less stories than they are disconnected slideshows, with disengaged narrators who mispronounce words often enough that they clearly shouldn't be trying to teach you the names of dinosaurs. Also, we understand that the art in colouring books needs to be simple, but if we didn't tell you that this were a Jurassic Park game, would you have thought this were Laura Dern or He-Man? It's dreadful, and I'm angry that you made me talk about it. Number 35. Dinosaur Stampede 2018. PC. If you can count on anyone to bring us a great Jurassic Park game, it's the people behind the most embarrassing crumbs you will find in our sofas. Doritos, whose scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could bring us a browser game, they didn't stop to think if they should bring us a browser game. That's a Jurassic Park reference. Dinosaur Stampede features clips from the then recent Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, such as a riveting scene in which Chris Pratt approaches the camera. We then cut to some Flash-style cutouts that somebody's nephew strung together into a simple obstacle course. Your job is to move a gyrosphere up or down to avoid obstacles while dinosaurs close in from behind. And even though they clearly do have dinosaur graphics in the background, the ones pursuing you are represented by a Roadrunner-style dust cloud. Great. You can also boost if you'd like to run blindly into hazards, or brake if you'd like to be eaten by prehistoric monsters, whatever's your poison, really. Real prizes were up for grabs, but we'd imagine that it's probably more fun to add some Jurassic World merchandise to your cart on Amazon than it is to play this repeatedly in the hopes of eventually winning a baseball cap. It wasn't much fun, but on the bright side, it's now extinct. Number 34. The Lost World Jurassic Park 1997. Game Boy. The Lost World for the Game Boy has a plot. That's about all I can tell you for sure. You play as a character so bland he almost seems like a placeholder sprite. Seriously, this game might as well have started life as a prequel to Pitfall for how generic it is. The goal is ostensibly to find eggs or discs or DNA depending on the level, but the more immediate goal is to see how long you can go without shutting the Game Boy off and asking God what you did to deserve this. My personal record is 11 seconds. The levels are large and maze-like with no clear indication of where to go or why you would want to go there. The controls are fine, but you jump at a strange, unnatural arc, which makes it difficult to tell which gaps you can clear and which gaps you can't, which leads us to a lot of unwelcome backtracking. The foretracking is bad enough. Making us backtrack as well is just cruel. Every so often, Harvey Keitel calls you up to plead with you to keep playing the game. Sorry, Harvey. This isn't the first time I've disappointed you, and it won't be the last. Number 33. Jurassic Park Explorer 2007. DVD. It's another ranked list first as we finally tackle a DVD game. We haven't covered any topics that had official DVD games, at least that we know of, so it's not as though we're actively avoiding them, although starting now, we might do just that. Jurassic Park Explorer came with both a DVD and a game board, and you'd be forgiven for thinking the latter has anything to do with the former. The instructions tell you to take turns rolling the dice and moving your piece around, but there's no goal on the board. All you do is land on spaces that tell you which minigame to select from the DVD menu. You could do that by rolling the dice without a board at all, or you could just play the minigames in sequence and see who wins the most rounds. The DVD has a measly 7 minigames, which include mazes, matching puzzles, guessing which dinosaur you see through the fog, and even text-only trivia questions. It's about as low effort as something can get while still technically existing. Strangely, the box suggests that you can play at home or in the car, but we can't imagine too many people bought hybrid DVD board games with the intention of playing them in moving vehicles. Or at home. Number 32. Trespasser, 1998. PC. I bet you expected this to be at the very bottom of this list, didn't you? Believe me, I wish it were. Trespasser is not a good game. It deserves its reputation, which is only marginally better than the reputation of brain-eating amoebas. You play as a character named Anne, but it feels more like you play as a marionette made of spaghetti. The controls in this game, and the way in which your character responds to these controls as though she's still unused to having a human body, went on to inspire games like Octodad and Surgeon Simulator. The difference, of course, is that those games knew that this was ridiculous ridiculous. Trespasser wants you to take it seriously, then puts you in control of a Gumby figure that's been forgotten in the back of a hot car. Trespasser provides a full gaming experience without a HUD, which sounds like a better idea than it is. The only way to know how much ammunition you have left is to listen for verbal cues, so good luck picking out those during a firefight. And you check your health by looking at a tattoo on your... Come on, guys. I know young boys are the target audience here, but even they would think that that's gratuitous. It's not all bad, though. Trespasser was singled out by Computer Gaming World for a special award. Let me just check what that was. Oh dear. Right. No, it's all bad. Ignore me. Number 31. Jurassic Park III Island Attack, 2001. Game Boy Advance. Games are supposed to be fun, right? I'm not forgetting something here, am I? Like, the point is they're meant to bring you some degree of joy? I just want to make sure, because Jurassic Park III Island Attack nearly has me convinced otherwise. Island Attack is an unresponsive, repetitive, tedious slog through the worst game design concepts imaginable, from pounding repeatedly on crates to get the items inside, to making blind jumps on a tiny screen, to trying desperately to get your grappling hook to latch onto something, anything, even once, for God's sake! The plot of the game is that the developers hate you and want to drain every ounce of enjoyment from your life. It's up to you to bite the game cartridge in half and spit it into a roaring trash fire. Failure to do so results in the bad ending, in which you continue to own this game. It looks like somebody finger painted it in the medium of animal vomit. It controls like your thumbs are issuing mild suggestions rather than commands, and it sounds like somebody leaning on a novelty car horn. Playing it is every bit as much fun as waking up to discover that you've been buried alive. Number 30. Jurassic Park III Dino Defender, 2001. PC. Dino Defender is often considered to be an edutainment game, partly because its developer, Knowledge Adventure, almost exclusively made edutainment games, and partly because it's as bad as edutainment games typically are. And yet, there's very little that can be considered educational about Dino Defender. You control the little robot from Power Rangers, you know, the one who didn't do anything other than say aye 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 and sing about Jesus. You walk back and forth across empty levels, throwing a switch now and then. Periodically, you will encounter dinosaurs who look to have escaped from somebody's box of colour forms. The game's focus on puzzle platforming can sometimes remind you of Oddworld, at least in the sense that it makes them ask themselves, why am I not instead playing Oddworld? The lack of challenge is forgivable in a game aimed at young children, but the lack of inventiveness is not. Ask any child what they'd like to do in a dinosaur game, and manage circuit breakers is likely to be quite far down the list. Progress in the game does unlock printable trading cards, however, which I mention only because printable trading cards might be the single most 2001 phrase in all of gaming. Number 29. Jurassic Park III Danger Zone, 2001. PC. Danger Zone was developed by Knowledge Adventure. Again, come on, I barely escaped the last one with my sanity intact. This one takes the form of a board game, and some of the sequences do indeed quiz you on dinosaur facts, but being quizzed on something isn't the same as learning about something, so I don't think Danger Zone can be called edutainment either. Players take turns moving around the board, failing to understand what the minigames expect of them, and then asking their parents if they can be sent to bed without supper. It reuses some graphical elements from Dino Defender as well, just to ensure that you wouldn't be able to successfully forget that game. Obviously, something like this will only be fun in multiplayer, but Danger Zone has an upper limit of 2 players, making this computerized board game significantly less versatile than most actual board games. Considering the turn-based nature of the experience, there's no reason that support for 3 or more players couldn't have been implemented. Not that you'd ever find more than 2 people who want to play this, but still, it's the principle of the thing. Ah well, at least I made it through this entire entry without quoting Kenny Loggins, and you're welcome for that. Number 28. Jurassic Park, 1993. NES and Game Boy. When Jurassic Park released in theaters, its special effects were staggering. It was among the most visually impressive movies that had ever been released, and nearly all of it still holds up today. It's puzzling, therefore, that instead of making any attempt at visual spectacle in the first home video game, the developers drew it in Microsoft Paint. I admit the NES was far from a graphical powerhouse, but when Kirby's Adventure looks better than Jurassic Park, it's pretty clear someone isn't trying. The game looks sort of like The Legend of Zelda with dinosaurs, which as a description is far more fun than anything the game actually provides. Instead of being played by Sam Neill, Dr. Alan Grant is played by a litter of cats in a bear costume. It's your job to walk in circles, wondering where to go. Along the way, you'll collect dinosaur eggs and mystery boxes which are as likely to kill you as they are to help you. The game was also ported to the Game Boy, just in case your main complaint about the NES version was that you could see where you were going. Of the two, we actually recommend the Game Boy version on the grounds that the game is easier to drop into the sewer. Number 27. Jurassic Park, 1993. SNES. Is the SNES version of Jurassic Park the same game as the NES version? We went back and forth on this one, and if you disagree with where we landed, just pretend we're talking about all of these versions in one long entry. Either way, this version is better, but it's certainly not better enough to matter. Many areas of the game are identical to the NES version, and plenty of others are similar enough that they don't warrant discussion, but there are a few tweaks that take advantage of the hardware, such as the first-person indoor sequences. Those are clearly noteworthy, as implementing an entire genre shift each time you enter a building is an impressive feat, especially on a 16-bit console. But these levels lack anything resembling fun, they're difficult to navigate, and the game runs at the speed of actual evolution. Why rank it higher then? Well, it's not as if the NES version was any fun either, and this does technically feature some degree of visual spectacle, which suits a Jurassic Park game. Also, the graphics and sound in general are superior, so playing the game is still like being in hell, but it's a part of hell with nicer wallpaper. Number 26. Jurassic Park, 1993. PC. Oh, for flip's sake, is every Jurassic Park game going to be like this? In fairness, this version of Jurassic Park looks like a straight port of the previous two games we discussed, but it is different. For instance, you start the game on some dirt instead of grass, and that's something. It also contains unique levels and sequences. The visual similarities were an unfortunate development during development. Ocean Software paid handily for the rights to develop Jurassic Park games, and that certainly led them to cut development costs wherever they could. That's why these games look the same. It's easier to take something you've already made and adjust it for different hardware than it is to build something new each time. And so when the team working on the PC game saw the versions for Nintendo systems, they adopted the visuals and mechanics more or less wholesale. This is unfortunate because the PC development team allegedly had a lot of their own unique ideas. Many of them are in evidence in the finished version, such as a few sequences lifted from the novel that did not feature in the movie. Left to their own devices, the PC team could have come up with a different approach entirely. Instead, they inherited a framework and did their best within it. But hey, at least the first-person sequences are better here. That's something, right? Right? Over to you, Peter.
Number 25. Jurassic Park Interactive, 1994. 3DO Interactive Multiplayer. How do you convince people to buy a console that, when adjusted for inflation, sells for more than $1,300? If you answered with an exclusive Jurassic Park game, you might be right. If you answered with an exclusive Jurassic Park mini-game collection, however, you are definitely wrong. I would say that Jurassic Park Interactive was developed with a quantity over quality mindset, but I honestly think that quality never even entered into it at all. These are barely connected reskins of older games, only clunkier, uglier, and with longer loading times. Just what we always wanted, eh? You'd think fans of Jurassic Park would have wanted, a Jurassic Park game, rather than a version of Asteroids in which you shoot at giant floppy disks. The game couldn't even use the actors' likenesses, allowing for some serious "you've captured their stunt doubles" energy each time they're on screen. There are a few sequences that are bigger than mini-games, but still not quite full games. Half games, maybe? Half-arsed games, more like. Anyway, these include shooting Dilophosaurs, or DILFs for short, while nothing happens, driving away from a T-Rex while nothing happens, and navigating a maze full of velociraptors while you wish that they would kill you in real life. Number 24. Jurassic Park II: The Chaos Continues, 1994, SNES. Despite the name, Jurassic Park 2 was not based on the second Jurassic Park film. You'd be forgiven for thinking that it was, being as they're both equally terrible, but it was purely coincidental. At first, the game seems to have some decent variety, with 6 missions available at the start, each of which has a distinct explanation of what needs to be accomplished. Then you'll load any one of those missions and be faced with the same run-and-gun platforming in a maze. 4 of the 6 missions even drop you into exactly the same environment with exactly the same obstacles. This would be less of a problem if the game were fun, but with its placement this far down the list, how much fun do you think it is? The controls are fine, at least, but that's about the closest we can get to a compliment. The repetition is off the charts, the difficulty is absurd, and you only get one life. Then again, when you die, which you will, quickly, I'm pretty sure it qualifies as a mercy killing. Also, the cartoony intro is completely at odds with the actual game, and Alan Grant, for some reason, acts like he's auditioning for a starring role in the next Contra. The chaos may well continue, but I certainly won't. Number 23, Jurassic Park Dinosaur Battles, 2002 PC. Jurassic Park Dinosaur Battles is one weird game. You do technically play as a person, but you're ultimately controlling dinosaurs in a sort of Fight Club scenario. And if your issue with Jurassic Park was that there wasn't a dinosaur Fight Club, or if your issue with Fight Club was that there weren't enough dinosaurs, I suppose this is the game for you. The plot centers around the work of Dr. Quartz, who spent her career cloning and controlling dinosaurs who would battle each other to the death. I don't know much about her intentions. I don't even know if she actually called the project Dinosaur Night, which she definitely should have done, but the upshot is that when you stumble across the fruits of her labor, you too can clunkily control a handful of dinosaurs with skills you unlock through DNA sequencing. The dinosaurs don't look that great, the animations of each fighter rarely feel like they're happening in response to the other, and there aren't enough playable dinosaurs to keep things interesting. Also, for a game about a dinosaur fight club, the developers missed an obvious multiplayer opportunity. Instead, it's you versus the AI in the fight of the century. The fight to stay awake, that is. All of that said, it is weird enough to justify a look, and it at least tries, which isn't something we can say about most of the games in this list. Number 22, Jurassic Park Institute Tour Dinosaur Rescue, 2003, Game Boy Advance. It may have a strange name that gets even stranger when you realise it's just a minigame collection, but Jurassic Park Institute Tour Dinosaur Rescue at least makes partial sense. It was tie-in merchandise for a Japanese exhibition developed with the assistance of paleontologists. The Institute Tour exhibition itself seems to have gone over well. I can't say for sure. I confess I did not travel across the ocean and through time in order to attend a lecture in a language I don't understand for the purposes of this list, but the game is every bit as tacky and disposable as souvenirs traditionally are. Dinosaur Rescue consists of 5 minigames, none of which are about dinosaurs being rescued, dinosaurs doing any rescuing, or dinosaur and rescue being even conceptually related in any way. The games involve avoiding stampeding dinosaurs, collecting meat, and engaging in fitness boxing with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. One thing you've certainly noticed, of course, is the game is absolutely adorable, with everything having a sort of cuddly toy aesthetic. This lends it a huge amount of personality and helps it to stand out for its style alone. But that's literally the only thing the game has going for it. There's not even a framing device, it's just a menu screen with 5 very basic score attack games as options. It's an interesting curio, maybe, but not worth digging up. Oh wait, have we used that joke already? Oh, we haven't? Oh, well, it's actually surprising. Nice. Number 21, Warpath Jurassic Park, 1999, PlayStation. Michael Crichton reportedly started writing what would become his novel, Billy and the Clonosaurus, in 1983, meaning it took 7 years of careful research, revision, and rewriting before the book hit the shelves. He couldn't have known it would become a pop culture juggernaut. However, he also couldn't have known that it would lead to a video game as bad as Warpath, so it probably balances out. Warpath is a game in which 2 dinosaurs hit each other. That's it. You can pick the dinosaurs who hit each other, you can pick the location at which they hit each other, and you can pick the precise way in which they will hit each other. It's a one-on-one fighter that's about as lazy as a tie-in video game can be, short of simply not putting a disc into the case. If it were a competent fighting game, it might at least serve as a fun novelty. However, there's nothing to Warpath Jurassic Park. It's as basic as a fighting game can possibly get, with 2 two dinosaurs smacking each other around, quote, quite unrealistically, according to the Jurassic Park wiki, in an observation that was clearly typed by someone with their nose pointed directly into space. Number 20. Chaos Island: The Lost World, 1997, PC. Chaos Island: The Lost World is a strategy game with dinosaurs. I repeat, Chaos Island: The Lost World is a strategy game with dinosaurs. What more could anybody possibly want? I mean, a better one is the answer, but still, nice idea. It's unfortunate that Chaos Island isn't as great as its concept, because it had a lot going for it, not least being the fact that the actual cast of the Lost World film returns to do the voice acting. This includes big names such as Julianne Moore, Vince Vaughn, Richard Attenborough, and Fly Daddy himself, Jeff Goldblum. And the central concept of the game, breeding and managing a squadron of fighting dinosaurs, is excellent, with a simplified RTS approach that fits the all-ages appeal of Jurassic Park very well. It falls down in the execution though, as the game doesn't really become interesting and never really poses a challenge. You essentially sick your dinosaur friends on groups of hunters and watch as the latter are gorily devoured, which is fun the first few dozen times it happens, but it loses its luster for the next few dozen. It's not a bad game, but for all its potential, it ends up feeling disappointingly under-realized. There's a great game in its DNA, but that DNA needs some serious resequencing. Speaking of which, number 19, Jurassic Park III: The DNA Factor, 2001, Game Boy Advance. This is not a game in which Simon Cowell scours the nation for the next best dinosaur. No, a plane transporting jars of DNA, right, is struck by lightning over a dinosaur island. Right? And it's your job to run around collecting the individual nuclear bases of DNA. Right? I mean, that is a plot for a Jurassic Park game, I guess. DNA was in the movie, but actually, come to think of it, DNA is in every movie. Oh, mind blown. Anyway, you get to choose between two characters, Mark or Laurie, with the difference being you'll either regret playing as Mark or Laurie. You scamper around collecting nuclear bases that are roughly the size of your head, which is definitely a bit larger than they are in real life. Seriously, if your nuclear bases are the size of bowling balls, consult a physician immediately. No part of the DNA factor is fun, least of all attempting to navigate long, boring levels that occupy several planes without any sense of depth, making it difficult to judge what's ahead of you as opposed to what's in the foreground or background. It does contain some important Jurassic Park lore, however. We learn that the scientists didn't do anything impressive by reconstructing dinosaur DNA. They just played puzzle bobble with adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. I'm onto you, you frauds. Number 18, Jurassic Park, 1993, MEGADRIVE. What did every child love about Jurassic Park? Why, all the scenes of adults talking quietly to each other, of course. Some very strange children evidently preferred the dinosaurs, though. I don't understand it, but here we are. Blue Sky Software attempted to cater to this no doubt minuscule demographic with their Jurassic Park game for the Mega Drive, allowing them to play as an actual dinosaur, as well as Sam Neill with arthritis. The game offers two different campaigns, with the real effort obviously going to the one in which you are a velociraptor on a killing spree. This is the better of the two modes, mainly because it's shorter. The game's graphics have not aged well, and the soundtrack appears to have been composed by a flatulent Roomba. In addition, it's just not much fun. Playing as a raptor and shredding little people is cathartic enough for a few minutes, but the blind jumps and awkward controls quickly get very old. Or 85.8 million years old if you want to get cretaceous about this. Playing as Dr. Grant is a bit better in the sense that he doesn't go flying off like a misfiring rocket when you're trying to navigate tight platforms, but it's still not great. He doesn't so much jump as he does become briefly weightless. It is better than what Nintendo fans got, but so is Undercooked Chicken. Number 17, Jurassic Park The Ride Online Adventure, 1996, PC. When developers make amusement park ride tie-ins, we usually get, well, versions of the ride. Maybe you'll have to collect magical cupcakes along the way or some other such thing, but Jurassic Park The Ride online adventure charts very different territory. The game is a first-person point-and-click adventure similar to 1993's The Journeyman Project. Superficially similar, I mean. I don't think the Journeyman Project was made to promote a log flume. It has an interesting premise, at least. The designers of the real-world ride were evidently cloning real dinosaurs as a side hustle. And yes, the premise of the ride itself is also that those dinosaurs are real, but I mean to say that the people who designed the fake dinosaurs that were meant to be taken as real dinosaurs also cloned real dinosaurs. Sorry, did I say the premise was interesting? I must have meant difficult to explain. As you click around and get mauled by terrible thunder lizards, you'll uncover some interesting backstory, including the fact that a human woman gave birth to a raptor, and that the park employees evidently enjoy dinosaur role-playing in the bedroom. Again, did I say interesting? I must have meant deeply troubling for an amusement park's browser game. Number 16, Jurassic Park 1993 Mega CD. Jurassic Park on the Mega CD is a decent, if hideous, point-and-click adventure that does have some effort invested in it. The story takes place after the first film, in which the dinosaurs wigged out and killed everyone. You play the role of a scientist tasked with rescuing the remaining eggs so that dinosaurs may continue to wig out and kill everyone. A noble pursuit. Many sources claim that the game has a real-time 12-hour limit, but that's not entirely accurate. Yes, if you do stand around doing nothing for 12 hours, you will fail the game, and I'd be impressed by your patience, to be honest. But moving from place to place on the map and performing various tasks will drain the timer much more quickly. This makes the oblique puzzles even more frustrating. Not only will you need to find items, but you will need to figure out when, where, and how to use them, with the clock ticking down every second. Also, in spite of the fact that a mouse peripheral was released for the Mega CD, Jurassic Park is not compatible with it, leaving you slowly dragging crosshairs around with a D-pad. It's not a particularly fun game, and there's no question that pixel art would have looked much better than the grainy animations we got instead, but it is at least more than a string of barely interactive FMVs. God knows the Mega CD had more than enough of those. Number 15, The Lost World Jurassic Park, 1997, PlayStation and Saturn. The ability to play as a velociraptor in the MEGADRIVE Jurassic Park game was an enormous selling point. It was such a selling point that people bought it even though the game sucked on toast. It makes sense then that The Lost World contains not just one playable dinosaur, but 3 of them, as well as some people you'll only bother playing as so that you can get to more dinosaurs. It's not a great game, and it's more than a little bit disappointing that in the 32-bit era, Jurassic Park games were still following 8-bit game design. One of the intentions was to let players feel what it's like to be on both sides of the gun. You'd learn what it's like to be an animal in the crosshairs, and learn what it's like to know that pulling the trigger is your only chance of survival. And the game succeeds in this area, at least as far as that it demonstrates that life stinks both as a person and a dinosaur. In 1998, the PlayStation version was re-released as a special edition, giving fans access to the playable T-Rex far sooner. This was good because it meant you could give up much earlier without worrying that you missed anything cool. Number 14, The Lost World Jurassic Park, 1997, Mega Drive. In The Lost World, you are Roland Tembo, played by the late Pete Postlethwaite in the film. As in the film, hunting is a major drive for the character, and that feeds into the gameplay. You have the option of either gunning down dinosaurs or tranquilizing and capturing them. The former is certainly easier, but the latter leads to greater rewards in terms of health and power-ups. It's a simple system, but it goes a long way towards adding some thought to what could have otherwise been a simple dinosaur massacre. For the Mega Drive, the game looks and plays great. On-foot segments offer vehicles to keep things moving briskly, and the chase sections, in which you both give chase and are chased, are frankly incredible for the hardware. All of which sounds great, right? Yes, right. The answer is right. Sadly though, the gameplay itself lets things down, being as repetitive and tedious as we'd expect from low-effort licensed games. Missions consist of simply walking around to find NPCs or blowing up generators, almost completely squandering the potential that the game built for itself. In short, The Lost World for the Mega Drive is not a low-effort game, but ends up feeling like one anyway. Number 13, Jurassic Park the Game 2011, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. Hey, remember when Dennis Nedry dropped that shaving cream can full of dinosaur embryos? Well, we've got the story of what happened to the shaving cream over here. See, nobody cares. For a story that takes place during and after the events of the first film, you'd think that Telltale could have picked a better focal point than something the audience stopped caring about the moment Spielberg cut away from the scene. When Telltale is doing great work, such as with The Walking Dead or Batman, the strength of the writing carries the experience far beyond however many or few buttons you'll press along the way. With Jurassic Park, though, that writing rarely rises to the level necessary for us to care. There's also an annoying tendency for characters to hold each other back from escaping the island. While the story does provide a number of conflicting objectives, none of them convincingly suggest that they wouldn't at least want to escape from the dinosaurs that are eating them. Surely they should be able to work together at least that far. Cutting social commentary or hacky writing? You be the judge. But hey, don't take our word for it, or the word of any other critics. It's the players who matter, and they really seemed to enjoy it, giving it a wealth of 10 out of 10 ratings. Oh, never mind. Number 12, Jurassic Park III Park Builder, 2001, Game Boy Advance. Jurassic Park III Park Builder is easily lost in the shuffle. It was neither the only Jurassic Park game in which you managed the park itself, nor was it the only Jurassic Park game released by Konami for the Game Boy Advance in 2001. They released 3 games in the same year based on the same film. As such, it's easy to view Park Builder as little more than an also-ran, but it honestly deserves another glance. Not a long glance, mind you. Again, there were other park management games in the series, and all of them were better, but considering the hardware, it's really not bad. It's extremely simple, with little to do other than plop down structures and upgrade them, but it's also deceptively challenging, with money running out quickly and it being difficult to turn things around once your finances start draining. In other words, it does a great job of teaching children that their dreams are untenable. You can't even make a profit when you miraculously resurrect prehistoric species, Jimmy. Do you really think your lemonade stand is going to be any different? You might as well start learning about NFTs right now.
Number 11, The Lost World Jurassic Park, 1997. Game Gear. The Game Gear version of The Lost World is the best retail game with that title, which is saying next to nothing, I know, but I'm trying to be positive here. It's a perfectly fine little platformer, and I do mean little, as you can complete the game in less time than it takes you to sneeze. Still, it controls decently and its levels are rarely obnoxious. Also, in a truly inspired idea, you can tranquilize dinosaurs and climb on them to reach other areas. That's so perfect that I can't believe more of these games didn't do it. Actually, looking back at how little thought went into those other games, I can believe it. I'm sorry I lied to you. The graphics look nice, even if the game doesn't always make the best use of them. For instance, I genuinely have no idea how this boss is doing this with his legs. Still though, it's fun for the 20 minutes or so that it lasts. What? I have long sneezes. The music is also pretty good, but it does slow down along with the rest of the game when there is too much happening on the screen, making it sound like the digital musicians all forgot the tune at once. Number 10. Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, 1994. Mega Drive. In spite of its title, which makes it sound like an expanded or enhanced version of the previous Jurassic Park game, Rampage Edition is a completely different game that serves as a sequel. At the same time, however, it's clear that developer Blue Sky took the opportunity to correct much of what they got wrong previously. The game released 2 months after the films debuted in theaters, so it's probably not much of an exaggeration to call it a rush job. Rampage Edition, however, came out about a year after the film, giving the developers more time to, work out how to make it. The result is a game that revisits a few of the previous game's core ideas and executes all of them better. The controls are better, the level design is better, and the music is... well, the controls and the level design are better. The graphics have also aged better, going for a more colourful style with thick comic book outlines. You still get to control either a Velociraptor or Dr. Grant. Why is Dr. Grant back on the island? Don't ask, he doesn't know either. If Blue Sky really were trying to give us Jurassic Park for the Mega Drive but better, they succeeded. I just wish they'd gone for Jurassic Park for the Mega Drive but good instead. Number 9. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, 2003. PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. Have you ever watched Jurassic Park and thought, I could run that place better than John Hammond? If not, why not? The guy did a terrible job of things. The only way you could run it worse is if you led your guests directly into a dinosaur's mouth and told them to tickle its uvula. Regardless, Operation Genesis gives you a chance to build and manage the Enterprise yourself, Zoo Tycoon style, with the ultimate goal of earning a 5-star rating, which, to me, seems quite unnecessary. You've got the only park on the planet with living dinosaurs. Does anybody care if the Michelin Guide only gave it 3 stars? It's not like the customers can say, oh, we'll try Cretaceous Circus instead. Why not go to Mesozoic Municipal Recreation Area next time? Idiots. Anyway, now that I'm done venting my spleen at a park management game from nearly 2 decades ago, I can say that Operation Genesis is actually quite fun. It even has a Site B mode that allows you to let dinosaurs run free on a different island, likely confusing the hell out of the local wildlife. That's a nice way to give dimension to these creatures beyond them serving as simple park attractions. Number 8. Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues, 1994. Game Boy. It's surprising enough when a Game Boy game is better than its console counterpart, but when it's this much better, it's miraculous. As in, it literally counts towards the canonization of the developer as a saint. Jurassic Park 2 The Chaos Continues for the Game Boy is perfectly competent, which means it's approximately 6,000 times better than the SNES game. It's a fairly standard platformer, but well, that's a good thing. There's none of the confusion that saturated the maze sections of the game, with things being clearer and more straightforward here. Strangely, it's also less repetitive. That's a second miracle. Guys, one more and developer Ocean is officially a saint in the eyes of the Pope. The game features boss fights and auto-scrollers that keep things interesting without ever becoming too difficult, and while the necessity of collecting keycards to open level exits sounds tedious, it's really not too bad. In fact, keycards can be close enough to each other that you wonder why they bothered putting them in the game at all. It's less of a scavenger hunt than it is a breadcrumb trail. Actually, come to think of it, it looks and sounds better than the SNES game as well, which is... oh wow, a third miracle. Okay, it's official. Call the Vatican. We need to make arrangements for the Feast of Saint Ocean. Number 7. Jurassic Park, 1993. Master System and Game Gear. One of the better Jurassic Park games tends to be one of the most overlooked as well. This honestly makes sense. The SNES and Sega's own Mega Drive had eclipsed the Master System in every aspect, and the Game Gear wasn't exactly where one would expect to find a great licensed game. And so when most kids in 1993 asked their parents for a Jurassic Park game, they almost certainly asked them for something significantly worse than this. The Master System and Game Gear versions are basically identical, with the former obviously having the superior presentation. The hardware limitations of the latter do lead to some issues, such as sprite flickering and the fact that the driving sequences seem to have you controlling an Adidas shoe, but either way, it's a good platformer that controls well and offers more variety than one might expect. It's also pretty short, however, with a leisurely playthrough taking maybe 45 minutes. Collect all of the Jurassic Park icons though and you'll unlock a special 5th stage. Yes! 5 whole stages. This one ends with a boss fight against a purple Tyrannosaurus, making this the second worst to best video to feature Barney. That's too many, if you ask me.
Number 6. Jurassic Park Arcade, 2015. Arcade. The name may put you in the mind of Sega's 1994 Jurassic Park arcade game, and that's almost certainly deliberate. But 2015's Jurassic Park Arcade, developed by Raw Thrills, is more of a spiritual successor, incorporating aspects of multiple films. Raw Thrills actually purchased a 1994 cabinet and played it for inspiration, enamored by that game's sense of pacing and momentum. They picked a great game to study, no question, but the resulting mashup of Jurassic Park's past, Jurassic Park? No, that's rubbish. Feels profoundly underwhelming. Its intentions are good and its graphics are certainly fine, but many of the Raw Thrills employees had never worked on a rail shooter before and struggled to bring their ideas to life. There were also troubles with the engine, and evidently with cohesive vision, as members of the development team each had their own concepts of how the game should turn out. It is nice though that the ultimate goal of the game is to capture dinosaurs rather than kill them. Of course, in order to capture the dinosaur at the end of each mission, you'll end up massacring hundreds of others along the way, but oh well, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few dinosaur eggs, am I right? I'm not right, otherwise human beings would never have survived the invention of the omelette. Number 5. Jurassic Park III, 2001, Arcade. Sega's 2 arcade games went out of their way to make it very clear that you were firing tranquilizer darts at the dinosaurs rather than live ammunition. You weren't murdering dinosaurs, you were knocking them out. That dinosaur isn't dead, he's just resting his eyes. You haven't exterminated a species, they went on a cruise and are having a lovely time. I promise. Jurassic Park III, on the other hand, developed by Konami, offers no such comforting illusions. Yeah, you're mowing down living history with hot lead. What of it? And that's really all you're doing, actually. The previous arcade games weren't exactly bursting with variety, but they kept things moving quickly along, eliciting exactly the sort of don't blink tension that makes otherwise gimmicky shooters work so well. Jurassic Park 3, by contrast, often has you standing motionless while dinosaurs just plod over you. It's fun enough, but a sense of repetitiveness sets in early and never quite leaves. When you're killed, there's not the same need to keep pumping money into the machine to keep the high going. You instead feel like it's probably time to try a different game. None of which makes Jurassic Park 3 bad though. Konami knew how to make arcade games, and this is a perfectly competent experience. But compared to Sega's outings, which both had more love invested into them and had better source material, it falls a bit short. Number 4. LEGO Jurassic World, 2015. PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Wii U, Xbox 360, Xbox One, 3DS, Vita, and PC. Don't let the name fool you, especially if you were underwhelmed by Jurassic World. LEGO Jurassic World actually covers the first 4 films in the series, reimagined as the things that make you howl and scream profanities when you step on them in the middle of the night. As such, fans of any of those movies are likely to find something to enjoy here, and the cartoonish slapstick versions of events keep things from ever feeling too familiar. Too familiar in the narrative sense, that is. LEGO games of this era leaned very much upon a kind of template, and that template is indeed familiar. Still, it's a sturdy one, and it's hard not to feel charmed by the little plastic dinosaurs walking through little plastic trees on their way to eat your little plastic intestines. It's adorable. If you've ever watched our every Star Wars video game ranked from worst to best list, you'll know that Darth Vader is, spoiler alert, Chewbacca's father! And you'll also know that LEGO games on handheld devices are usually quite different to their console counterparts. Here though, the vast majority of the experience is intact on the 3DS and Vita, which is impressive, and the small amount of content you'd lose with those versions is made up for by their portability. Actually, it's also on the Switch now, so scratch that. Sorry to have wasted your time. Number 3. Jurassic Park 1994, Arcade. In 1994, Sega released the first Jurassic Park arcade game, and as the company had extensive experience with both rail shooters and vehicle-based arcade cabinets, the game they produced was perfectly within their wheelhouse. 2 players could sit within a miniature Ford Explorer and get bumped and bounced around during the adventure. Hold on to your butts, more like hold on to your lunch, am I right? I am not right, actually, because the vehicle's motion was within the accepted parameters of comfort and was unlikely to disorient anyone, let alone induce severe episodes of nausea or emesis. Should keep our legal team happy, Jesus. The game was a tie-in to the first film, but actually served as a sequel story. You and a friend take on the roles of Dr. Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, who survived the disaster on Isla Nublar in the film, but apparently regretted that they didn't shoot more dinosaurs on the way out. They return heavily armed in order to rectify this. It's a genuinely great game, and it does a wonderful job of keeping the family-friendly monster movie atmosphere of the film intact, with fun jump scares and chase sequences. It might not be the best Jurassic Park game, and it was a bit expensive to play, but it deserves high marks for actually being, a game that is good. Oh, fancy that. Number 2. The Lost World Jurassic Park, 1997, Arcade. Sega's arcade game tie-in for the first film was an arcade smash, and a deserving one. The company then got to reimagine the film's sequel in a similar vein, and it's difficult to say whether or not it's superior. It's certainly better in some ways. The previous game was a rail shooter that lacked the literal shooters, using a joystick instead. The Lost World, though, has light guns, making for a more exciting experience. It also looks quite a bit better, though that's not to imply that the first game looked bad. The Special Edition cabinet, which was exclusive to Japan, introduced even more improvements, such as a larger screen, advanced hydraulics, and a gust of air that would hit you in the face when the dinosaurs roared, which is the cutest thing in history. Sega was a bit disappointed in the game, promising that scrapped levels and features would be restored for the Dreamcast port. That never came to pass, however, as the Dreamcast fared about as well in the world as actual dinosaurs did. But whatever else it could have been, the version of this game that we got is excellent. Superior to the first one or not, it's still definitely worth playing. And apparently it is superior. I mean, just look at the rankings. It's Philip's list, and we've given him the authority to make decisions like that, apparently.
Number 1. Jurassic World Evolution, 2018. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. With a lot of these Jurassic World games, we're all okay with the fact that they're actually Jurassic Park games with some gyrospheres added, right? Right. Several games have attempted to give fans the opportunity to run exciting, fatal dinosaur parks of their own, but none have been better than Jurassic World Evolution. The game takes things just a step further, with park management being one part of the experience and the ability to explore your own park being another. Never before has it felt so good to own a dinosaur park, right down to the inevitable escape of the beasts and the devouring of innocent tourists.
Critics, a bit surprisingly, were divided on this one. Some called it too simple, some called it too complicated, some called it too difficult, some called it too easy. It's a genuine case of there being no correct way to make a game like this, but I'm happy to applaud developer Frontier, not only for the work they did ahead of release, but for the support they offered afterwards, in the form of patches and updates. The DLC even featured a Jurassic Park 1 cast reunion, with Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and B.D. Wong all reprising their roles. Conspicuously absent is Richard Attenborough, who excused himself on the grounds that he died 4 years prior. Typical. Spared no expense, my arse.
Those who tuned into E3 2021 and those who were smarter and just watched some highlights later will have seen a trailer for Jurassic World Evolution 2, and it has every chance of being better still. Even if it isn't though, it's worth being grateful for what we've got. As we've seen, things could have been much worse.